Yes, thanks everyone for coming. Check. Thank you. We just had a moment of forgetting over there. When they changed the operating system on you, there's an interesting forgetting that happens there too. Now, where is that anymore? But I don't want to start on page 3. It's not much longer than that. But thanks again to Current Space for hosting this edition of Crosscurrence. Tonight's theme is forgetting, and also Laurel is at the bar, and she'll be happy to serve you many beautiful drinks. And here we go. So it's hard to know where to begin with forgetting. It cuts so many ways. Involves memory. Forgetting seems, mixing metaphors, to wash away what we know, but incompletely, such that at times it shows up through erasure like an illegible palimpsest fragment, drawing into a bewildering search to recollect. A name, for instance, of a person you know so well, but cannot surprisingly recall, at the tip of your tongue, yet pulling somehow into shadows and darkness, the dark light intensity of dreams, perhaps, something of that atmosphere at least, where you as well remain to be collected once more, so to speak, where, upon waking, it's difficult to put into words however much this fleeting yet visceral mood is sustained and keeps close. It proves elusive to the grasping hand of a clear and narrative ordering, slips away from comprehension. As a simple word may, on rare occasions, and tell me if this hasn't happened to you, maybe it's just me, but on rare occasions, a simple word may strike you as odd, and repeated over and over again and again drives you finally to the dictionary, wondering if it is even a word or some strange bit of nonsense you stumbled upon, and finding always, nevertheless, and with much relief, that it is, in fact, a word. I go to the dictionary quite often, but I go not for the certitude and reassurance. I go for the loss, for the dispersive hints of a puzzling memory, where, at a loss, in dreams, you are to some degree beside yourself. Forgetting, quite literally, is to lose one's hold. It's a grasping word. It is a stubborn hold, nonetheless, which has us saying things like, I have a fever, I had a dream, while all the while, more accurately, it can be said the dream, the fever has you. Forgetting thus forgets, in this way, at a moment of loss, which would otherwise seem to threaten the very notion of having to begin with. It is hard to begin with forgetting. There is a tendency to repeat oneself, especially where repetition would begin to occur without a self to have it, troubled by a more immemorial tensions and traces, as a blind spot of vision with infinite difference reveals and displaces the hubris of our knowing selves without offering anything similar in return to anchor and orient our being together through time. Seeing is forgetting the name of the thing one sees, is the title of a book. Opening on to the life of Robert Irwin by Lawrence Weschler. Had the occasion in early 2000 to attend a talk of Robert Irwin's just down the road, in which at the very beginning, sitting on a stool, he began to speak, and shortly after, suddenly stopped, unable to recall what he was going to say. There was a deafening silence, into which he began to speak again. Maybe if I get up and walk around, it will come back. And so he did, and suddenly, in a matter of seconds, it did come back. But how does one stay with a forgetting that does not arise from a knowing in advance, what one is going to say, where at a loss, repetition would begin to occur again without a self to have it. Joe Schmale is an artist whose work many of you may be familiar with, though if not, I encourage you to seek it out. In any case, her work has been a source of inspiration and discovery ever since 2000, around early 2000. And around that time, I had the good fortune of visiting with her in studio, and it was not long after she had been recovering from a stroke, regaining her speech and writing. It was singing, actually, that came back first. After Happy Birthday, apparently she knew a lot of psalms. Years before this, she lost many of her paintings in a fire, and still years before that, had left South Africa for Baltimore, where she has lived since 1985. At some point, though, in a conversation, we were discussing process, and Joe said the following: well, there are moments when one forgets oneself, and that's when it happens. And we work towards that. Last page, I promise. In other words, borrowed from Blanchot, Maurice Blanchot, to remember forgetfully, forgetfulness, remembrance of the immemorial without recollection, ceaseless vigil over immeasurable absence, fitting then to be here amidst a ruined garden, moved by the wandering sway of forgetting, open like the wobble of a muon, drawing physicists to think anew of unknown forces. There are no physicists on the bill tonight, as far as I know. Let us begin then once more with a filmmaker and poet and runner, Meg Rorison.
Thanks, Andy. I guess I just wanted to say, I appreciate you asking me to read, and to, I'm definitely, so I used to write a lot, and I'm trying to figure out what my voice is again, so I feel a little vulnerable with these pieces. One is a bit old, that I reworked, and then another one is, actually I have two more. So I guess I would love any feedback. I love writing, and it's something that I want to reconnect with, but still trying to figure out what my voice is now with writing. So this is called The Bread from Al-Fakar. I did not know until I lived there, Granada means pomegranate. I would not have understood if it had not been shown when standing above. Granada looks like a pomegranate, its streets appearing like groupings of red pulp, homes enclosed by white membrane walls. I remember older generations and how they were proud of Granada's beauty. While the young would taste Granada's flesh, they would consume and digest the city as they grew. It was winter when we drove through Al-Fakar. They say the best bread comes from there, a pueblo past the outskirts of Granada, beyond agricultural fields, beyond highways and modern hotels. In Al-Fakar, villagers sit in doorways without doors, ham legs hang in bars, flies cling to empty wine glasses. The youngest traveler from Granada mentions here is where Federico Garcia Lorca was shot. His body believed to lie under an olive grove adjacent to the Fuente Grande spring, a spring that creates good bread, the bread, they say, enhanced by the tears of the poet. The poet believed to be shot dead by the phalangists, his body dragged there, then buried, a nightingale killed between Visnar and Al-Fakar. The young continue to read his poetry, reading it through the night. His voice still sings. For the older generations, he is a symbol for La Ciudad. I attempt to understand both voice and image, but I'm held back by language, so I taste the bread. In Andalusia, they have their traditions surrounded by La Mediodía. Work stops and families gather. My apartment building holds heavy smells of cocido, sopa de ajo, The soup that sits all morning, maturing, mixing, the same soup every Monday, a different one every Friday. The soup sits while the men watch crosswalks, while they gossip by windows drinking café con leche, while I wander, while I listen. The soup sits while los mujeres clamor to gather the hours spent shopping for bacalao, cebolla, camarones, and the fresh bread bought from Alfacar. In Andalusia, they have their traditions. Soup is always served before meat, the meat always eaten with bread, the bread that comes from a small town outside of Granada, which we passed that one Sunday. I remember the sun setting, the rays hitting the steep, nearly impassable mountains. Granada, a city once ruled by the Moors, remnants of painted tiles and jasmine gardens, the earth now holding almond trees, bitter oranges, their stone arcs now entrances to modern streets I walked through. Granada, a city where Ferdinand and Isabel lay preserved in a marble crypt off hectic Gran Via. A city where the Francoists order Lorca shot, history that rests in the minds of los Granadinos. Granada, a city where today traditions live like chants among older generations. Granada, a city which has become my chant to remember. It is in Granada where the young consume the bread, digesting the tears of the poet. They taste his tears. It is in Granada. I continue chanting words which link me to the bread bought from Alfacar, to the traditions, connecting words, connecting tears, to the taste of bread bought from Alfacar, to the bread which I remember, how they say it tastes, but the taste I can't remember. Okay, I'm gonna read. Maybe. Maybe you can guess what this is about. This is so nerdy, but I'm just gonna read it. It's really nerdy. Oh god. Okay. We find a connection in cadence. Endorphins build a cycle of limbs in full rotation, pounding down hills, sounding like a deep rumble of a bass drum. Our foundation, quiet like an orchestra. Jokes between breath, laughing at the sky as the sun sets, dodging city structure, potholes weaving in between parked cars, heels on asphalt, sweat, bare flesh, salty calves. There's an addiction to this, a different type of pain, one we welcome, then stretch out in salty hairlines, warm skin, dried earth on our ankles from kicking in stride. One by one, we jog down from the sprint, finding a resting place, a space to close our eyes post-climax, then the heart slowly finding its way back. And then I didn't get to print this. I have it on my phone, which I've never read from my phone, but I guess people do that now. I'm old. Okay, so okay, this is also like a little uncertain, so maybe any feedback later would be nice. But yeah, this is the last one, and I guess like I'm mainly a filmmaker, photographer, but I think in my writing too, like the landscape and nostalgia are always themes that I like to explore, so this is an example of that. The woods served as an escape, the upstairs constricting, silence confusing, a pressure I could not define. We looked forward to sliding the stiff screen door, followed by a thick slam, the sound symbolizing a beginning. Stepping outside, embraced by the shade of the tall beech trees, surrounded by the mesh of bird song, an occasional car, late summer cicadas. Our ears were adjusted to this type of quiet, using the landscape to develop a new vocabulary for escape. Below the slowly eroding hill, protected by discarded Christmas trees, we would crouch by the rocky edge of the stream, sifting through the current, grabbing fragile bits of mica and wide mossy rocks. The cold water stinging our fingers, water skimmers flicked by the shadowy surface, dabbles of light pass through the leaves. Dressed in worn play clothes, handmade shorts with elastic waists, made from fabric we selected from Joann's, rough cotton from the sale rack, cheap designs, or cool prints depending on the season. We never went far upstream. It always seemed too distant. We had our familiar spot along the bend, past the small beach under the large fallen oak. We would navigate downstream to a small waterfall, crouching underneath, pretending it was much larger than us. Through the leaves, we would catch our father mowing the lawn, a quiet figure in faded stonewashed jeans, pushing the gas-powered mower, the whole act isolated and loud. Our interactions, waves and nods as he made a turn towards us, then down to the next line of long grass. In the early days of July, my brother and I would take the familiar green plastic bowl with us to collect wine berries, the juicy ones falling right off into our fingers as we grabbed them, the thick maroon stems and long branches pricking our cotton shorts and fair legs. Sometimes the rain would come, late warm afternoon rain, unannounced, thunder, then a flood of warm drops in our eyes, our hair becoming wet and sticking to our cheeks as we ran up the driveway and onto the front porch and back inside. And that's all. Thank you. I'm gonna make a plug for running. So if anyone likes to run, there's actually I was just telling someone else. There's a group called Tribe Called Run, and if you're interested in getting back into running or a little intimidated, they meet every Monday at our house at 6, and then we run at 6:30. And tomorrow's actually the Pride Run, and it'll be so much fun. And there's a 1 mile and then a 3 to 4 mile option. So you should all come run tomorrow.
Just spilled water all over my binder. Cool. So again, can't thank Andy enough for the opportunity and the invitation to read and to think about forgetting. When I heard the theme a month ago, like there was a prose piece that I wrote a few years ago that like totally came to mind, and I'm not going to read it, but I will spoil it for you. And I do have copies here if you'd like to take it, or just read here in the binder. You can come find me wherever I may be at one of these tables. But I wanted to pick up actually where this prose piece had ended, and it's a piece from Christmas 2019 where I was visiting family, and it was myself, my grandmother, my grandfather, father, mother, and my little sister who just turned 11, and we went around the table trying to tell stories of where we were at her age, at the age of 11. And everyone had something interesting to add, except for my mother, who said to me that she literally couldn't remember anything, and that life has gotten so busy that she couldn't remember the past, and there's no time to think about it. So this past month I've been excavating and writing about, almost like filling in the blanks and trying to figure out like, why Mom? Why can't you remember? Something must have happened, and I've been trying to dig through that. But I feel kind of like that Turkish guy who was digging through his basement and found that whole underground city. And it's like, there's so much more left to explore and to probe, and I just haven't gone all the way there yet. So for now, this is some selections from an unfinished work of poems. But so, again, like, it's a continuation off of where my mother says that she couldn't remember, but she'll try to tell me her story someday. Oh, and it's a multi-parts, so if you feel like clapping, just wait until the end. And you can also come find this binder and like flip through the remainder here. I also have some books from a self-published book of poetry from years back if you'd like a copy that has handwritten corrected typos in there. Come find me. Okay, so part 1, The Matrix. I think you've heard this one before. The matrix of capitalism keeps the dreamer enslaved at the will of wage labor on a dirt road that tickets on quotas and pockets that change before it even makes a promise to repave. The red horse is bound to the gaps between laps, between each carrot allowed, between each quarrelsome hurdle they're coerced to gallop for the coin chase spoils that always come up tails. Except when you get ahead of your neighbors to push a bet, you may lose yourself a bit, but win a promotion instead. Confucius had a proverb that said, 废寝忘食 Translates to fail to sleep and forget to eat, and it was meant as a compliment. But your mileage may vary, and perhaps the truth is much more scary. From pyramid to paper, the system stacks diseased gladiators, the bodies spent in employment coliseum to duke over rations at the foot of a handful of rotundly red-drunk dragons. And while you're all busy battling by saving and stashing away your winnings, the banks and the reserves with the treasures all conflating and conflicting, they keep on inflating the supply of a precious wheel spinning, an invisible leech to you, and your wallets be draining. The truth is, the harder you work for the pursuers of profit, the less we all matter in the grand scheme of the pyramid plunging and propping. The system encourages us to get ahead of our neighbors instead of getting to know them, and competing to build the highest picking fences to become the most good among them. It seems every year you have to climb a ladder even taller to maintain a life in a bubble or ivory towers. You say you want a larger house, and nothing else would make you gladder. So you do what you can to extend that ladder, but as you climb further, the air gets thinner, and even birds have trouble singing through such shivers. So high above you spin your wheels, as below the plant spins you, and you can't escape the suffocation of office headspace in different days, on different days, and same shit, same orbit, same cubicle torment and torpid. Please, come back down to Earth and come back to the office, please. You're uptight at the desk and with the rest, and soon you forget how to live outside the fear, and soon you just let life unlived silently pass you by, zip year after year. But it gets easier. You get used to the noise. You get used to being unheard as part of the herd, a lifetime cashing in checks and coupons. Life is full of opportunities and inopportune trade-offs, and there are no free meals or easy ways off. So you stay on to spin your wheels and take fewer and fewer days off, round and round in pursuit of pounds and deposits that compound. You forget that money is just fiat, it's just currency, it's just substitution of time and energy in this IOU institution. Dumb illusion, pretentious paper and precious metals, all forged from somebody's precious time and mental exertions to be a masochistic vessel that gets paid to remember the devils, that does all the counting and thinking at the mercy and service of the dragon still drinking. Life plus force plus labor equals matrix. You lose hope in being free and resent those that defy gravity. I think something along those lines was said by Alejandro Jodorowsky. Living the dream, say those stuck asleep. It's not that bad, say the living dead. I got mine, say those on their way out. And a population busy working doesn't have time to do much else, says, well, George Orwell. Part 2. A phone call. Sometimes I wonder if the world's so small. You posted another video I saw. Oh, you saw that. You don't comment on my singing, my dancing, or my eyeliner. I don't know, Mom. Some people just want to fill the world with silly love songs. You're 30. You need to take things more seriously. Serious, not joking. Okay, Mom, I have to go. There's a piece about being on the road and working for a small business. I'm gonna skip that, but this is when I come back home on a visit. I hear you whistle from the corner of the stairs. It's your signature sound, like lobbing a canary to signify the coast is clear. You're checking if I'm awake so that you can come in and say what you want to say. I curl into my sheet and hope you'll just go away. Okay, I let you in by shouting a muffled okay. You pull the blinds up and reveal the heavy rays. It's yet another arms crossed day. I thought you'd be more mature by now. I rub my eyes. More mature how? Your index turns and your pupils beam. Mature, 兄等于 listen to me. Home had been like months of walking on eggshells, and each day it felt like becoming less and less myself. I was 26 when I moved back under your roof. You had a kid at the same age. I'm living proof. You weren't listening when I said, big plans take time to hatch. As I tried to get you to understand the math, the small business needed some time to restructure, and letting me go gave me too much time to be with my mother. And both parents came by to remind me day and night that I've wasted every year that they let me out of their sight. Your face is a mess, and we're cutting your hair tonight were the first things you said when I pulled into the driveway, and every day thereafter you begged me to please stop trying to do everything my way. Just go to grad school, get a better degree, jump through the same hoops that we've learned to feed. You treated me like an animal that walks on 4 feet, and there were so many conversations still I longed to delete. Go back school, my house, my rule. You kill your mother when you dress like a fool. You asked me not to wear pink because pink is for girls and you already have one daughter, so you need me to be a son. 女孩子穿 pink. And when I try to pick up my guitar and pick, 你还在 play guitar? 你想成为 rock star? You mock me in my brittle heart. You don't care that I just want to make some playful art. You with your voice broken like chalk and your piercing glare like a grabby hawk. The whole thing was played to death and I just want the dignity to rest. Belabored by life in this suburban enclosure and eager to know that this can't be all before it's over. Next part is called a photograph. I held a photo of me when I was 3 or maybe 4, with pigtails and a dress that fell to the floor. I was smiles, I was love, I was holding a pup. I was flowing in the form of a trumpet flower cup. But I can't help but wonder who put me in this outfit and who decided to take a photo of it. Next part's called a home-cooked meal. No kidding, end of day, most important thing, always money. Money, 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 money. Colorful a carousel of colorful advice. Should marry someone who can do dishes if you don't like do dishes. At the dinner table, you live by Hopkins, right? Find a nice Chinese girl doctor, wife who needs citizenship. Makes my head spin. Don't use internet, fine wife. Internet full of scam and robber. I sigh and spoon some more rice. And she cannot be redacted or looks like a redacted. I'm just sitting chewing rice and, but if she a redacted who's a doctor, then okay, because that means she's smarter than typical redacted. Still chewing. Tell you truth, no one might hire you unless you get another certificate. Sometimes I think that silence would be nice. So you go and live out here and get married, right? I spit out my pork and rice. An observation. Lately, I've been infatuated with birds and the wonder of a life through their eyes. Neuroscience said that humans are mostly visuals, while smells or olfactory senses rule over other mammals. I picture dogs that have heat vision based on their stereoscopic snouts, and also the way they can sniff the passage of time when you hold your hand out. Birds can see love songs, magnetic fields. Birds, I imagine though, are like jazz musicians, perched in their seats and intently listening, hearing and responding, waiting to sing. A life lived, often up in the trees and deciphering songs from each other's beaks. I then wonder about the humans and the electromagnetic towers and what they could be doing to obfuscate their powers. All their senses and compasses all twisted and bent. The sky was once for singing should they lament. But you have to make omelets. Does anyone hear it? The echoes of the forest as it falls when we clear it. For something more important, for industrial matters. Does anybody remember laughter? Skipping a few of these. Next one's called a factoid. Somebody once told me that babies inside bellies first hear music when they listen to the rhythm of their mother's heart beating. Only love is on the room. Bluey feathers on the flue. This is called a cage. Mother dreamt of 1,000 ways that I could die and tried to convince me that I needed her to survive. Worry was what she chose to do, and guilt was what I couldn't help but feel. Sesera ra uka no yoni hakujitsu no moto. Explaining how painfully bad it felt at times is often difficult. You haven't forgotten about the time I almost drowned at the water park, or the time I cracked my head on concrete from jumping off the bed, or the time I knocked that kettle off and burned my own flesh. You learned that you just couldn't take your eyes away, anxious of the dangerous world and anxious to keep safe, like a mother bird on high alert for the sake of her unborn babe. But the barbs, the feathers, they drive the wrong way, and the wings around the precious egg tighten to form a colorless cage. Kiyoku umete kizukaenu yoni saisho no mama. You want us to both believe it'll never be safe to come out. Redacted, redacted, redacted. Next one's called a movie. When we watched Mamoru Hosada's Mirai no Mirai, it was you, your daughter, and I, but you were on your phone the whole time and never bothered to lift up your eyes. Mother, I think I've tried. I really wish I could know what you've done with all that time, if you weren't doing so much just to struggle to survive. So I try to take us back. When I was 10 and visiting your mother's, I remember seeing a printed anthology with a page that had a Mondrian-esque work of art. Abstract with colors, I'm sure, but it was printed in grayscale. Abu was smiling as she pointed out your name and laughed proudly. Nida Mama! I can't remember how you reacted then. Did you scold Grandma, thinking she was encouraging me in my pretentious thoughts? Did you walk away as you played dumb when touching on touchy subjects? No time for such frivolous things. 20 years later, you denied there ever was a book. Maybe if you did write a book, you would deny your 20s, of which you've still yet to tell me a single story. What else were you forgetting when you preached to your children? Don't chase them. Dreams should just be dreams. Each day it gets easier, get paid to solve problems, and start to see the world only in terms of problems to be solved. I start to believe that it's more natural to not remember dreams at all. And who has time to sleep, much less dream? When you're getting your master's while waiting at a Chinese restaurant while raising your firstborn while you jump through all the hoops to renew your passport, to stay in a country that wants to keep you poor, and where you have trouble speaking with anybody so often, you are ignored. You shake your head and return to the to-do list, and focus on what you can do, not what you can pointlessly imagine. Only actions have any proof, and your good deeds must have a paper trail to a better life somehow. It was all for something, right? To some avail? Something must have happened. Where were you really when you were 11 or 27? History might not always be what it seems, but you keep your eyes open every night, on guard for the demons and vampires that bite. You told me once that when you do dream, it's always black and white. You were once an artist, but you don't think about it much anymore. You were a collegiate volleyball athlete, but you don't think about it much anymore. You wanted to be a nurse, but you don't think about it much anymore. Now as a comfortable kid, and throughout this life that I've tried to live, there's a feeling of guilt that I still store in my pit, that I should have done more to help you whenever I visit, that a child should be able to save their parents, to return this life's gift. This is called a rain check. Maybe next time, I say, after I canceled our plans, after suggesting an alternative to you visiting this summer, after you left me a voicemail, after I stopped answering phone calls, after what you said the last time you caught me, after ambushing me on false pretenses, after years of silence and non-answers, after trying to lighten you up after no reason, just laughter, and after years of discomfort and financial pressures, after I moved far away to be close to me and far from you, after I started driving myself and no longer needed you to, after you took me wherever I needed to go to get a permit, after you took me everywhere, but only when you permitted, after a long spell that was never addressed or resolved, after the night that could have drowned out all actors thereafter, after I dropped the blade, after you twisted my arm, after I rushed down the stairs, after what he said, after my hand heard the sound of something shatter, after he threatened to break something of mine, that strata, after you were both unhappy with me over an arguably trivial matter, after getting less than 100%, and after hiding cigarettes in an Altoid tin can, after I started hanging out with real friends, after we finally settled on a city, just kidding, it's a verb, after we've kept moving for jobs and citizenship, after you brought me over across the ocean, after you left me with your parents for years, after I nearly drowned before you got to know me, after you brought me into this world, after 9 months that must have changed your brain chemistry, after you had your whole life planned to rail just to have me. All this before I painted a complicated picture of us. After everything that has happened, what is there really to say to one another? Okay. This is called a breath and I could use one. Woo! Thanks. I was about to step outside to toke on some dope when I see you on the sidewalk by a bucket of chalk. You instinctively fold your arms and say, "We need to talk." It's a Friday family party at a neighborhood friend's. I hide my hands in my pocket and give you this open time to vent. Your head nods at the people through that mansion and say you have no interest in their incorrect opinions. I don't know why you bought into that suburban dream of having a lawn and a McMansion to keep clean. So far from the sound and so far from your bustling hometown, where do we go to be away? What makes us want to get close or to stay? All these loudmouths saying, "Try this is the best," or try is the tastest. All runchy thoughts, all disappoint mess. The street lamps cast our shadows as exaggerated features, like two red-crowned cranes in a landscape Hua picture. Tall stilts, thin stakes. When you see the water birds park in nature, you can wonder how long they've been there roosting, but on paper, always in this tranquil frame they have remained, and with speechless beaks they stay on unchanged. You know they've always been this way painted, decorated with leaves on a leaf, eternity in a blanket. My legs are starting to get cold from wearing the shorts that you told me were too short, and I'm ready to go before time gives you the opportunity to scold. Your arms are still crossed, but you ponder. You should stay longer. I forget how many ways I can uncomfortably say, I just don't think I can. So for just a little while longer there, we stand. drudgery of working at a job, and then I have like maybe like 3 left, some of them shorter than others. A reprise. The matrix of capitalism keeps the spirit ensnared as a tired old mare winded beyond repair. There's so much to despair from all that we're fed, and I'm still reeling from all that's been said. When I was younger, I was a stallion raring, and the older I get, the more I feel wary, fragile from stress that I can't unmount, and panic for the time that I had lost count. 1 more year. Whew, friends and family take front seat. In the future, there will be time for me. 1 more year. My health wasn't all up to snuff. Next year, I'll handle the big stuff. 1 more year. When's the last time I even held a brush? Oh, the bottles and canvases are gathering dust. 1 more year. You don't have to write that book. And in the future, we won't have to cook. The world keeps spinning and your head keeps spinning. And as you turn to imagine a cubicle wall with a window, you ask and try to envision, where did your youth go? Time blinks. You were once 15. For a moment, 16, going on 17. I know that you're gonna be 18, and she will be 19. And I'm on fire, but when we're 22, I don't know about you, 23. Nobody likes you when you're 26. Well, the years start coming at 30. This is not my 33. And it keeps coming, and it keeps coming till the day it 41. And it don't stop coming, 53. And you may find yourself... that part was called A Daydream, and this part is called A Ride. Well, it's not like I listen to music to intentionally gain something, but rather, it's that I can't help but feel changed when I do listen to music. It was an unusual car ride where you asked me to explain something. What's the point in singing songs? Deep in digression, with a serious expression, I stroke 3 or maybe 4 chin hairs, then throw my arms out like a frisbee. Sure, there are lots of genres, clearly, but I feel like there are 3 types of emotional delivery. Some artists go up and go, do you feel this? Or, I feel this. And those are either super sad or super cringy, and they try to relate to the individual artist's filtered experience. Then there are others that are like, I hope you feel this because this feels good! And I think those are empowering anthems, cringy but fun dance songs, have this type of infectious energy. In all cases, I think they hope to make a connection so we all feel less lonely. It continues. There were times when I tried to build a bridge to nowhere with you through the sound, to use the aux and the airwaves to find common ground. But the music I listened to was mainly non-stream and indie with the occasional Japanese visual kei, so okay, the music I tried to connect with my mom on was really not all that common. But just then, Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven comes on and I say, oh, I think you've heard this one before, as the radio plucks out the first 4 notes of the opening chord. You didn't ask, but I started to child-explain the lyrics anyways. There's a lady who's sure... So there's this lady. And she's buying a stairway to heaven. She wants to use money to buy a way to get into heaven. I get excited and give you the line by line, play by play, but it's unclear if you're even giving me the time of day. You're focused on steering the Honda Odyssey and don't look much at 13-year-old me. We get to the destination, you park across the street while my best friend and his dad step outside to greet. You turn down a conversation away from the fence. I open the trunk to get my musical equipment. You tell me, 2 more hours, okay? I say, okay, but then forget to say thank you as you drove away for taking me to band practice today. All right, this is the penultimate one. It's called A Thread. Who else are you going with? Just a friend from school, and Mom will be there too. Everything my sister says sounds matter-of-factly because she only mostly speaks in facts. We're about to drive to the airport right now, actually. Well, I hope you have so much fun. Goddamn, Taylor Swift live, OMG. Shortly after, my sister sends me a short video with a sweat smile emoji. It's Dad driving them to the airport in their Lexus. The second half of a sentence Mom started before Dad starts in Chinese. Well, what if we just didn't talk the rest of the way? I smile and text back, tell Mom and Dad I said I love you. Epilogue, a vacation. We're staying at a house that's pastel yellow, topped with a half-finished red triangle. My sister is on some Wello sabbatical while I tag along on a beach vacation in Passable. The world keeps spinning, the birds keep singing, but no one keeps count of these excess innings. Everything is the same as it ever was, but it's nice to walk away from the buzz. Once in a while, so far from the sound, my feet on the ground, just walking, just because. I take some steps through a vineyard and follow the sand until I get to the sliding shoreline with a smokestack in my hand. I find a spot by the water to close my eyes and recline on a vacant patio chase. Feel my own breath while I listen to the waves. With each slow slurring lull, does it rock or does it roll? It's like there's some gravitational force of love that cradles to the shore, like a ghost in the wind that softly blows. I start to hear a voice above the din that airily goes. Xiao bao bao, yao sui jiao, niao er ye bu jiao. 小宝宝要睡觉，眼睛闭闭好。Thank you.
Something with this. So I'm gonna read a couple pieces from my forthcoming book, Tea Leaves. It is actually officially now coming out here at Current Space on September 20th will be my book launch party for this book that I will read from. Also, I think I dropped my text. So speaking of shameless plugs, happy Pride!
Love is love!
Love is love. I'll be celebrating Pride by starting with a piece about a heterosexual wedding that gets ruined by bird shit. It's called The Girl the Crows Followed. You're welcome, heterosexuals. Here we go. But first, Cecilia was the flower girl at her resurrector's wedding. Even back then, the crows lined the roof of the wicker-woven pagoda beneath which the couple said their vows, brows trembling, lined the white fence behind the pagoda, crowded three to a seat in the back where the infamous Thomas family failed to show up after yet another RSVP of yes. The crows shat in the spongy green grass, shat on the train of the bride's dress. Must be good luck, the maid of honor laughed. The bride, Katrinka, 25, still just a sorcerer's apprentice, crow-colored hair. The groom, Christian, 22, son of a banker, dark-featured himself. Sprinkling petals on the ground, Cecilia, 4, daughter of a family friend, pink pinafore dress, frown of concentration on her wide-eyed face, followed everywhere by crows. At the kiss, the crows exploded into the air, circled above, counterclockwise like a cyclone. Everyone thought it quite romantic, spooky, befitting of a soon-to-be sorceress's wedding. That is, until the birds began to rain shit down on the wedding guests. Even then, Cecilia felt responsible. But there was a charming cabana on the property, and the reception moved indoors without much fuss. After the obligatory first dances, bride and groom dance, father and daughter dance, groom and grandma dance, jaunty, crow-haired Katrinka asked Cecilia to dance, squatting down on the shining wood and waddling in circles with the small girl. The crowd cooed, the crows tapped the glass as if in warning. Quietly, Katrinka told Cecilia, in return for being my flower girl, I vow that from this day forward, I, Katrinka Oren, owe you one favor. Katrinka leaned closer, whispered, I'd choose wisely if I were you. I'm going to be a powerful sorceress someday. Cecilia frowned. Christian's so tall. Is he your brother? But the girl the crows followed would remember. 21 years later, Cecilia stood pressed against the dirty brick wall in the alleyway behind the bar where she worked. A man with feathery black hair and many patches on his denim vest cupped her breast beneath her wine-colored jumpsuit as she pressed her mouth to his sharp jaw. Neon light reflected from a greasy puddle a few feet away, and yes, crows lined the ripe-smelling dumpster. Fast and loose Cecilia, living wildly under the ever-looming threat of her mysterious, unfulfilled curse. I'd rather fuck up my own life than have the crows do it for me, she liked to joke. The crows, which had done nothing else but shit, screech, and stare at her all those years. At least, nothing else yet. When the man pulled a knife, Cecilia was barely surprised. She half expected a hilt sculpted after a crow's feather. In her last moments, she thought of Katrinka's promise. Katrinka was scrying into a bowl of water in her study at the time. The water displayed an image of her second husband, who was naked with a married woman uptown. There are some things even the magic of a powerful sorceress can't change. Mirror, mirror, Cecilia's freshly dead ghost appeared at the window, bloodied chest, jumpsuit the color of Merlot. Even after 2 decades, Katrinka recognized the ghost's sweet, determined face, the wide eyes, the brows furrowed in concentration. It was something of a relief to see her murdered flower girl, translucent and silent in supplication. Here was something Katrinka could bring back. The image of writhing flesh in the scrying bowl faded. The sorceress stood, legs stiff, wiggled her fingers. When Cecilia's resurrected body appeared, naked on the floor of the study, the crows were gone for good. A redemption, a second chance, a debt repaid. Katrinka brought Cecilia a billowing black dress and nothing more. She owed Cecilia a single favor. She promised. Thank you. This is called The Age of Oceanus. I have a couple pieces left. It gets a lot less whimsical and a lot more climate changey. So you're welcome. Love is love. Happy Pride. This is called The Age of Oceanus. Or Okeanos if you're really stringent about the Greek. Everyone would remember where they were the day the first river goddess died. The viral video came from Mexico, spreading first across the internet and then across the news as such things go. It was the slightest bit grainy, caught at the early stages of dusk with what must have been a cellular phone. Chalchiutlicue, a goddess Western civilization had long since presumed dead, along with most of the Aztec tradition, dragged herself onto the muddy bank of the Rio Grande, jade skirt slicked with oil and winged headdress tangled with plastic six-pack rings that captured other plastic jetsam of a species driving itself and its world to extinction. Chalchiutlicue managed to stand, stagger a hunched step, and lift her face to the camera with her mouth open in a silent plea before she fell face first in the mud. All this came accompanied, of course, with cries of surprise in the crisp sibilance of northern Mexican Spanish, mira, mira, ¿qué es eso? According to local news, this was not the only sighting of Chalchiutlicue in the last decade. Other locals reported having seen the wide-eyed, wide-hipped diosa in varying states of filth. A drilling technician's wife even reported a midnight sighting of Chalchiutlicue in which the goddess opened her mouth, allegedly with a look of desperate warning on her face, when heaps of stinking fish poured dead from her mouth. Most had dismissed these early rumors on the grounds that the Rio Grande region was too far north for a cosmic representative of the Aztecs, but most understood now that she was simply very far from home. It was not the first sighting, but it was the only one with clear footage, decisively clearer than any clips of UFOs, or Yetis, or Nessies, or Chupacabras, or ghosts, or any other wonders of cryptozoology, conspiracy, myth, or religion. However, it would be the last sighting of Chalchiutlicue, for there she lay, face down, in a heap of oil and trash and mud, and there she would remain. No one again would see the living goddess. In the weeks following the death of Chalchiutlicue, videos and photographs and reported sightings of other dying river goddesses poured into news stations. Images of increasing quality emerged as something of a sport developed, like tornado chasing or whale watching, wherein professional photographers and hobby photographers camped out along the world's most significant and polluted bodies of water, hoping to capture the perfect shot. Ganga making one last ride past Rishikesh, the lotus in her hand wilted, her crocodile steed coughing up what could only be described as human sewage. Ganga herself shivering with the cold of death in spite of the mid-October heat. The hag, Peg Powler, rising from the river Tees in Dinsdale Park at sunset, water streaming against her skin that bulged with what looked like the embers of coal beneath it, her green hair slashing out like serpents and wrapping around nearby children in an attempt to drag them with her into death as their parents tugged and tugged, leaving viewers to wonder what kind of person would stand by and film this, until her hair finally flopped to the ground like limp spaghetti as the burning coals inside her glowed brighter, the steam around her thickened, and finally she plopped into the water and floated away, burnt like a pork roast left in for too long. Still shots of Oba lying akimbo atop the dam at the Ogbomoso Reservoir, and the sightings kept coming. News pundits debated the veracity of the videos, politicians largely ignored them, conspiracy theories developed, cults formed, scientists shook their heads, for even if they could come up with some explanation for what seemed like another worldwide extinction event, the ever-changing climate had proven time and again that nobody with enough power would listen. Still, one thing was certain. Everybody remembered where they were when they saw Chalchiutlicue die, and even those who would deny what they saw felt a clenching somewhere beneath their heart and their belly, a voice deep down telling them that the time to reverse the tides of the changing world had passed. In its place, a new age, one of learning to survive in a dying world or choosing to die with it, had begun. Thank you. I promised I wasn't going to do this, which is read something from my phone. I will confess earlier today I was like, I hate when people read from their phone. No offense to anyone doing that as well as me. But I thought I had printed this piece, and I didn't, so I'm going to read it from the place where it was first published, which is Taco Bell Quarterly. On 4/20 last year, thank you very much. It's a piece about the relationship between, domestic abuse and climate change in Taco Bell Quarterly. It's called Niche Shift, content warning, abuse, blood, needles, homophobia, this is not from my forthcoming book. This is from my collection of poetry, which I have not yet settled on a home for, but it will be called The Pastel Witches Spellbook, and this piece is called Niche Shift, which is what animals do in extreme crisis when they need to find new ways to survive, such as herbivores learning how to, the body of an herbivore learning how to process meat in times of great duress, which is a thing that actually happens, like Chernobyl, etc. That's what a niche shift is, and that's what we're pushing as a species for everyone. Proboscis monkeys with cocks for noses screech in search of mates, frowning full fathom 5 months later as their children flirt with crocodile jaws from low branches. Cut off from you, I, like Borneo after glacial melt sunk its jagged land bridges, develop highly specialized forms of life that make little sense outside of isolation. I fry eggs atop spinach salads at midnight, grade papers, and argue about consent on Grindr until 1 a.m., masturbate listening to China Mieville audiobooks or dreaming of binge-eating Crunchwrap Supremes, light incense to gods no one's worshipped in millennia. I am a fat-bottomed pitcher plant, catching what I can in my wide mouth. Together we grew at the speed of Mount Kinabalu, 5 millimeters per year, but alone I have suffered, quote, a sea change into something rich and strange, drowned in my own disappointment. Each year the sky weeps, a Pacific Ocean's worth of rain over Borneo. I'll let that sink in. Somewhere a sea change. Warm winter days, I swear, tonight will be the night I'll really stop comparing this genuine climate crisis to my personal life. Midnight strikes. Invariably, I am wrong. Somewhere eyes become pearls, bones become coral. Somewhere barnacles creep up the shell of someone's home as they lose it to the rising sea. Somewhere you are abusing someone else. Here, I envision who I'll become when the glacial flood recedes and I am out in the world wearing all the weird clothes I bought to get me through quarantine. Fake pearls, vegan leathers, thigh-high stilettos, a necklace of baby dolls cast in pewter, spiked loafers I imagine wearing when someone mugs me so I can tear him open for what you did to me. A sequined spandex two-piece. The only fast thing about my fashion is the speed with which I regret it when I don't hit by. The only fast thing about a glacier is the thundercrack of its breaking, or how quickly, geophysically speaking, man spread his heat to shrink it. The only fast thing about us was how quickly I let you shrink me, or the speed with which you claimed I traumatized you when, at last, I broke away. In time, life will grow, quote, rich and strange when the last glaciers melt and the deserts spread. But you never did want to talk about the future, the reckoning, the day land bridge becomes ocean ridge and forest thriving becomes island. Thank you so much.
Reading from my phone game. All right, I am JAMBOOMBOOM. First and foremost, I want to thank Laura G and Andy for this opportunity. Thank you. This piece is called Water. So, I read somewhere once, probably as I was flunked out on the internet, that water contains memory. It said that water contains memory. It was probably just specifically for my algorithm. But what if you want to forget? So what do you do when you're thirsty? Do you drink your sorrows, or is that how you're absorbing it? I don't know. Just some food for thought, or some drink for thought. I walked into a diner one night during a rainstorm, and just to get away from it all. There was nobody else in the diner besides me and the waiter. The waiter didn't recognize who I was. It was the one night that I found peace.
And I'm turning to the horoscope and looking for the funnies when I'm feeling someone watching me, and so I raise my head
I open up the paper, there's a story of an actor who had died while he was drinking. It was no one I had heard of. And I'm turning to the horoscope and looking for the funnies when I feel like someone's watching me, and so I raise my head. So I'm sitting there in the diner, and the waiter turns on the radio, and the news broadcasts an alert to the city.
He's advising that everyone find shelter as the eye of the storm moves in on our city. Please, be safe out there.
So stuck in the diner until the emergency lifts, the waiter and I begin vibing, you know, playing 21 questions, the usual.
Question 3. What's your favorite Bible story and why?
Sir, huh?
Your favorite Bible story?
And what makes you think I read the Bible?
The cross earrings you're wearing?
These were just on sale.
So you don't have a favorite Bible story?
This is such a random question, but if I have to answer, I would say the Noah Ark story.
What's your favorite Bible story and why?
And why? Because that's the only one I can remember from Sunday school. Oh my God.
So then someone comes barging in to the diner during the rainstorm.
Don't come any closer. I have mace.
And I've got hot coffee!
Wait. Hey, oh my goodness. Grab that bucket. Here, spit in this. There you go. I'm alive. You're alive.
We're alive!
I'm alive.
Well, aren't we?
You got that right.
Needless to say, it was a pretty lit night. Then, damn near out of nowhere, the waiter just quits. Just up and quits her job out of nowhere. Then the diner gets a call from the boss who's watching the store through his security camera thousands of miles away, and he starts wilding out on me, just a complete and total buzzkill.
Thanks for calling the new and improved Big House Family Seafood Restaurant. Still the same home of the world famous bottom of the barrel crab cake. Now open 24 hours. Sorry that neither me or my hostess can answer your call. But if you leave your name, number, and the time to call back, we'll be sure to get in touch with you soon. Bye for now. Hey, looks like the power generator kicked in. The state of emergency have lifted. The storm has passed on, so me and Mrs. Farm will be back by the afternoon. I'm watching the restaurant here from my phone, and looks like you're not attending to your customer. Now where is it? Fireball. You sure you ain't been drinking? He was talking to me like he knew me or something. Must be one of those secret food critics. Sir! Hey, you! Pick up the phone so we can have a talk. Hello? What's your name? This camera comes with facial recognition technology. One of the perks of the security one. I'm paying a lot for it, but it's worth it, especially in this neighborhood. Just a click of a button and I can figure out who you are. There. So who we have here? JAMBOOMBOOM. The record here indicates that you're dead. No, I can it. You're right here in my restaurant. Hey, you! Get back here! Wait! Come back! Pick up the phone this distant! Where's my staff at?
Ask yourself, what are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you feeling? What are you thinking? Ask yourself, what are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you thinking? Now let this melody sink in. I got a flow just like water. See how I float on the water. I'm a poet like water. Haters get a grip slip on water. Bruce Lee said he is water. I got a flow like some water. I'm a poet like water. Haters get a grip slip on water. Going under pressure, besides me, some of the coldest climates. Seasons change, I couldn't stop it, so I had to change, make a profit. False prophets with gossip, stop it. We don't need your topics. If I'm talking, I'm plotting. Skip forward, your plot is not hitting different. It's not rehearsal. Don't damn me up, notching yo. Went from amateur to a pro. Do not take it personal. No. So make the bankroll, turn off the stove. Heat up the pot like the water simmer low. Got you in an app on the internet, so you fight your way, craps in a bad roll. What a psycho, what a psycho. If you know that you're different, then you gotta let it show. JAMBOOMBOOM with the whole club slow. East side 9, west side 4. Ask yourself, what are you thinking? What are you reasons? What are you being? What are you thinking? Just let this melody sink in. What are you thinking? What are you reasons? What are you being? I got the steady as water, so let it go like the water. Got the flow like some water, can't get a grip slip like water. Bruce Lee said be as water, so let it go just like water. Got the flow like some water, can't get a grip just like water. To make the bankroll, turn up the stove, heat up the pot, let the water simmer low. Got you on the internet, so you fight your way, crabs in a bad roll. What a psycho, what a psycho. If you know that you're different, then you gotta let it show. JAMBOOMBOOM with the bone flow slow. East 9, west 4. I got a flow just like water. It's how I float on the water. I'm a poet like water. Haters get a grip slip on water. Bruce Lee said he is water. I got a flow just like water. I'm a poet like water. Haters get a grip slip like water. What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you feeling? What are you thinking? Ask yourself, what are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you thinking? Now let this melody sink in. It was just one of those nights that you'll never forget. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. This is the best venue bar or gallery. Like that tree, the Polonia, the princess tree, she's so beautiful. I love fun facts, it's one of my favorite things. And fun fact about the Polonia, they're very successful at carbon capture. Very great at delaying soil erosion. And they used to use these seeds as packing peanuts. That's probably why they ended up here. Isn't that cute? So cute! Andy mentioned tonight about memory and forgetting. My dad has major dementia. He just moved into my house. And so I'm going to read some pieces that I wrote off of my phone. Phone gang. I appreciate a pushback. I appreciate it. I do. I love it. I love it. This season, we are pantry moths, getting into the rice beyond all imagination, bullish on plastics, plowing webs across the lid of the oatmeal moon that is your morning dreams. We are an easily murdered nuisance, ruining your grains, turning to powder on contact. We are worms around the house. We are an early worm turning, it's a worm, bang, it's a worm. This season, everybody has dandruff. Dandruff is just constantly flaking away into the eyes of strangers. This season, we are keeping certain plants alive, mulched with the televised content of early 2000s facial hair and two tight chokers. This season, Marcellus will outwit Josh again, and Amy will win head of household after sitting in a bathtub full of dead fish for 2 hours. But the fact is, everyone let her win. They didn't even try. Not even Josh the Virgin. This season, your favorite cookie manufacturer impoverished someone named Kevin, and a child was put to work on one side of the world so we could beg the internet to keep the green M&Ms slutty just like we like it. The child exists over and over again and is always the thing, churning their own life for survival while economies debate their merit. Permanently ghosted by the pink M&M, we will never know what a world without the labor of the young looks like. This season, we are being ghosted by everything all the time. By healthcare, by the muscle tone that escapes our limbs, by gym memberships, by morning dreams, and a moon of disappointment. Dreams walk away first thing. They are the very first thing to abandon us other than ourselves. We are the first thing to ourselves, and that is a huge problem. Our traumas are not everyone else's problems. Our judgment is not everyone else's character. We are the center of a universe which does not center us, and yet whatever it takes is how it is lived. Dreams leave first thing in the morning. It's not what you think, it's what you force others to think. This season, we are leaving it alone first thing. I'm going to describe a day in my life without using inflection. I can do 1,000 crunches before work. Here is my work wife, ha-ha laptops. Nobody exists. Corporate America, it's lit. We need to talk about how we talk about things. Yeah. A kind of mesh. The wind is free, our kind of free. When we buy it with our lives, it's free because we stole it from the future and the past at the same time. We suck the oxygen out of anything else. Aeolian harp of the mind, ringing through a tin can, ringing out like a wet shirt in the driest place on earth. An internal mist rearranging the furniture. Try to frame it like another kind of landscape. It's this one, painted. Film a painting. Humans. Burr fabric. Or solo cup. Are we meant to think about ourselves this much? But what about the edge of consciousness, scratching at the limits of the rug, what moralizes, what repeats itself endlessly as never having ever begun? Medallion lanes. It's the anniversary of the knife. Infinite blade in exchange for a token, and wash yourself in it for all time now. Right in the open, in the shadow. Mass contusions. Fend for yourself, the ultimate in ghosting, until hyacinths appear. Until the narcissus stops flowering, until you can no longer discern the feral white blossoms from something in the back of your mind, like a seaweed absolute. And I'd like to take a break in this reading to invite you to smell me. If you wish, I am wearing a fragrance from Gucci called Mémoire d'une odeur. If you wish, it's one of Gucci's deliberately unisex perfumes. They actually call it agender. Happy Pride. Seriously. Love is love. Love is love, baby. Content warning. Drug abuse, global warming, dismemberment. First off, I happen at night and everyone is confused. I'm driving around Forest Grove. They'll never catch me or my dark noises. No matter the evidence, John Deep Butts brought into public view. Someone opened fire at this hotel and traffic is backed up into Illinois. You say cop killer and something in me dies.
But it doesn't stop me from screening our invisibility kiss maneuvers on the eyeball side of my eyelids first and last thing each day, so I never go to sleep again. The sounds are arranged in 3 categories, big, little, tiny. I can smell each one, whether it stretches across underwater canyons the length of a continent, or squeals for a minute each spring in the colossal morning dew of history. A shape seen from space, doesn't matter what you think, walls don't work. My shoes keep washing up with my feet in them, severed at the ankle. My Pontiac dips face first into the gully, black and white and red all over and shivering in blankets while the tow truck hauls me blue out to see you again. I'm calving again. I'm shrieking, oh my God. From the bow of 1,000 ships I personally launched and expensive trips I personally oversaw, talking expensive shit, saying, oh my God, oh my God. It's impossible to move if nobody believes you. It is possible to be so quiet you are never seen again. So large you blanket the bottom of the sea. So loud you become legendary. They are coming from everywhere for me. Cover the mirrors. If we could stretch inside each other's faces, we would see, to hear, clear. When they checked the boots in the trunk, riding on the back, still upright, they found our feet, severed below the knee, stacked in the back like a spire of orange cones. Anyways, I'm fine. You probably are too. Too bad we'll never know. Check the tank. An unweighted truck bed shuddering back and forth across the tarmac from gulch to gulch. A trunk bobs in the air, metal duct denuding a pond floor. The Julia is never done. All sounds become permanent, and something amber this way wafts. In the photographs, you can see the boots standing up, and somewhere in there is me, my feet, and I still. The 1999 of her is unexplained and brief. It's like a quip and a dive. She bloops, and she's run aground. So what if her back wheels are in the air? Teens monitor the gulch, but it is too late. It's the 90s. Show us your boot, crop autumn. Gazing at sounds from the ocean floor. Get a rock to howl for you at dawn. Cut it in the shape of a man and then shatter it. Inscribe upon it and wait for the edge of spring. Loosen your mind. Every rock is hollow. And who knows what makes a thing sing? It's all just gas escaping, excited. The kitchen widow shudders by our long chairs. Those legs are our legs now. And outside, sheet after sheet of unusual rain swallows the smoke we make. This weather is Jurassic and figures heavily on the fake rocks everywhere. Fake rivers run hard when they are made to. She is pole dancing on the internet, on an internet. She is pole dancing on an internet skyscraper. Last name devastated by an intern working too hard for this kind of shit. I have to go to the bathroom. Hissing, come to me. I have to let you survive somewhere that has nothing to do with the columns we toppled. I thought that was a together thing. Socks on the shoes of my heart because the blisters there unbandage themselves. Can't find the fit. My grandmother, my driver, my friend, all strangers, genetically Julia, without trying. Why are people like this? We are trying to be beautiful, to be disgusting, and survive. And it always seems like someone is there to tell the Julia in us, she can't exist. I would like to read a piece that is not so much a piece, it's an introduction that I made for the film Pet Sematary. Who here's seen Pet Sematary by Stephen King? Okay. Good job, you guys. So I feel like this is really geared towards y'all. But if it's not, maybe you can choose to watch it or not watch it after this introduction. This was for a streaming TV channel that happened during 2020. Greetings, sports fans. Welcome to my room, where I will be joining you in a special porn TV screening of the original 1989 film Pet Sematary, starring Tasha Yar and Herman Munster. This movie is close to my heart because it scared the shit out of me in 1989. It scared the shit out of me when I rewatched it prior to this screening, and it is going to scare the shit out of me again right now, in the past when I watch it. This is the only one of Stephen King's original movies that was directed by a cis woman. Kimberly Pierce directed the remake of Carrie in 2013, and she identifies as genderqueer, actually. Happy Pride. And it is the only movie that Stephen King made that was filmed entirely in the state of Maine. Weirdly, all the locations within are an hour of where my sister currently lives. It's a little me fact. She likes to pretend she doesn't scare easy and that the most frightening thing in the movie is the accents. I can't believe I thought people would be interested in that as an introduction to a movie. This is an American middle-class retelling of The Monkey's Paw, an example of the dangerous secrets white men keep, a heartbreaking story of loss, and a house burning to rival Tarkovsky. It's also a very classic use of the colonist trope of the Indian burial ground. In 2015's Unearthed and Untold, The Path to Pet Sematary, a crew member says they researched actual Micmac burial grounds. And I do not believe that for 1 second, because if it was true, they would show the archival material in the documentary. The director of the doc, who features himself as a talking head, explains, utterly without context, that the myth of the Wendigo serves to dissuade native peoples from cannibalism or greed in lean times. Like the rest of the US and Canada, technically all of Maine is an Indian burial ground. Stephen King's home in Bangor and the Blue Hill Peninsula and Mount Desert Island, where the movie is filmed, are both all on Penobscot land. Not Micmac, although both of these nations are Eastern Algonquin tribes that, along with the Maliset, the Passamaquoddy, and the Western Abenaki, comprise the Wabanaki Confederacy. This is an ancestral homeland stretching from Newfoundland to the Merrimack River Valley in Massachusetts, and as far low as like almost Ohio and the American South, like Tennessee, kind of down as far as that. Penobscot Nation is one of the oldest continuously operating governments in the world. The Wabanaki Confederacy formally reconvened in 1993, and according to Wikipedia, coals from the fire lit at that meeting still burn today. Today, Alma Brooks, a Maliset grandmother from the St. Mary's First Nation in Brunswick, speaks out against fracking, and you can find her on Facebook, alma.brooks.79. Today, Passamaquoddy Chief Marla Dana is fighting for clean water. Today, Micmac Chief Mike Sack is fighting for Indigenous access to the lobster fishery in Nova Scotia. Finally, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the scenery chewing Zelda, abandoned by her family and left to rot of spinal meningitis, was played by an 18-year-old boy because director Mary Lambert thought that it would be scarier, which feels to me a teensy bit transphobic, if not outright. It's got a decent whiff of the stuff. There are a lot of weird plot-based decisions. It's got a so-called abandoned house that is move-in perfect and unpacked in one day. A doctor who uses his scrubs as pajamas keeps a scalpel in a velvet-lined box like it's the only one he's ever had, and doesn't know his wife's emotionally crippling family secret until it's too late. An actor who smiles like there's a string pulling his face. There are hanging chads of storyline everywhere. Like, why does Jed only tell half the story about his zombie dog? If he knew that, why did he bother even opening the cans of worms and helping his brand new neighbor cheat death over a cat that he predicted would get hit by a truck? Is Jed driven by the cursed ground to bring in new victims? What the hell? And on top of that, there's a bushel of trademark Stephen King character pronouncements like, the soil of a man's heart is stonier. He grows what he can and he tends it. And what he buys, he owns. And what he owns comes back. Because the soil is sour. Stuff like that. Lambert does pretty well, considering that prior to the film, she was directing Madonna videos. That's not meant to be belittling, it is simply a fact. She got her BFA in painting at RISD, and it shows. What the fuck? What did I mean by that? Oh, maybe she's got a gift for abstraction and emotion. And it shows. Pet Cemetery remains her most enduring work for a variety of reasons. Sadly, she hasn't directed another movie like this, or any at all really, which could be a fault of the industry. But also gladly because the environment of pure bucolic dread she creates is palpable. Thank you very much. I'm gonna do one more, if that's okay. Is that okay? Okay, thank you so much. Okay. This is really nice, Andy. Thanks to everybody who's reading tonight, and thanks to everybody at Current Space. Always. Honestly, always. So, another thing you can do is you can talk to me about the submarine. I have a lot of feelings about it. And because it is so many of the things that I love, which is the ocean and class warfare and like libertarians, you know, being eaten by bears theoretically. I don't know. Like, it's so fucked that we are in a place where you can be like, remember that fucking weirdo that murdered people with his handmade submarine? And you can be like, which one? It's fucked. I put on my good eyebrows for this medically induced 2-day coma. Send me to rehab. Our lookbook is the smell of rolling thunder and a saltwater spray for scrunching with. Something sharp and tangy that lasts all year. Something tonifying to the blood. Sliced lemon balsamic, shoyu, and a citrus vinaigrette. A blog post about the dad. A blog post of an article about walking the Appalachian Trail and remembering the father. An update to the blog post about remembering the father when dad passes on even further along. Sliced lemon balsamic, I'm ignoring the sun. We feature page after page of leg after leg, thick as trees you've never seen and dressed in soft hair. A bicycle-sized dragonfly, a pack of them, circulate in the mist. Leg after leg swims through the air, the color of subway station. Leg after leg, herding flocks of mayflies longer than toddlers. Forward, ever forward, one tree after the other. Emotions swim around the tree. Walk out on the low tide to pay homage to Yoni's spirit in water up to the knee. Walk a mile in gilded, tan salt waters. Emotional fish swarm and collect and linger for some reason. What are a dock? A set of pylons? They think I can protect them? They are emotionally complete. Expensive house in a floodplain, no insurance. Something larger will rebuild. Oh, heart. Oh, earth, you old extinguisher. Air bubbles in fresh underwater sand. Being able to see clearly into the distance is another kind of fog. An endless, unchanging landscape. The far off is here, behind you. The distant barge is here, next to you. The impossible wheel turns and a lake comes into view, beside you. Everything is sudden and ridiculous, and there is no foundation. And I keep seeing this. Emotions are not facts. My thoughts do not define me. Me thoughts are not me, not who me am, not anyone. Thoughts like fog, drifting in and settling on the horizon and just sitting there, drifting wide and becoming gray and kissing treetops. Wide-shouldered, confident, unstoppable, it's happening. Where can I vape on this train? My white legs walk for quarters of miles. And each time each leg does a pause, the slender little minnows return to smooch and smooth and swirl. They think I'm foundation, I'm protection. They think I can save them. Herds are prey. It's fear. It's blood sweats. It is the only thing left. I am so small, and my eyes cannot see, but I know that the tide is going out, that the water is becoming shallow, the crabs are heading for deeper water, more sexual water, while we are trapped here. My eyes are on both sides of my head, and my friends are close by. My friends are indistinguishable from me. My friend is me. We are one emotion, and we are so thankful for leg. Joy has blossomed into relief. For days, howlers, I don't know, possibly years. I don't know time. Time is your fault, anyhow. Just forward, forward, always forward, future forward, anything will do. Does it give shade? Stay here. Does it stay still, even for a moment? Could be a house. This leg is like a cave, a reflection on the side of a cave. They don't know, they can't possibly. And at the end of the day, I respect your boundaries. There is no but. There is only forward, forward, eyes perfectly aligned with a weight of sand. Emotions clear as a bell at the bottom of the pond. Emotions I can sense in their landscape with my feet, their edges, the things about them that are soft, the things about them that are brassy and separate from myself, the things about them that are fugitive, fleeting, unrepentantly id. I just want to feel a version of the sun that hasn't happened yet. We are starting to feel it. We feel it. I just want to simmer in a different kind of heat. I am starting to feel it. I'm inside of it. I am afraid of being eaten. Yet the eating is peaceful. Take forever bites. Go ahead. Despite an inability to articulate the sensation, I am able to agree that I am capable of nourishing the whole. Grass springs up through a mirror. Grass stays. We adopt the firmest thing closest to us, swarming. There will never be another different heat. There will never be another set of eye. Where are you going to put them both in front? Ha! Nice try. I don't have to know what something is to like it, to want to be close, to flick it with my tail and my whole entire self. Like, you need to see my pain to know I'm really doing something. There are only two modes, absolute lose it or obelisk passivity. Why can't you accept anything else? Why can't you accept that the vast middle distance is a conflation of here, and this point, and the infinity of the future, the stretching of potential, a luxurious unfurling of same thing muscular is tired of itself, tired of flirting, just can't seem to locate source or address or pin drop. I'm around you, like a red-tip marshland, shuddering muck, with fierce sprouts, agape with pollen and dusted by the setting sun. A horse, a dock, a national seashore, the thing, its surface, a dream. The thing surfaces as if in a whole dream. Physically, I'm okay. Physically speaking, I'm Shell. Physically, I am Webb. I'm Kyle. Upset, I report you. My Yelp review of this interaction reveals I'm a bad person. I'm cruising, shark-like, approximate, eyes rolling, and I'm doing it at the dinner table. You can newspaper about it all you want, if that helps. The one app will tell you too late to do anything. And the fog is too slow to see the nose you want to punch. The fog bosses the air like a fist. It makes the blood cold and the eyes furious. And there's something about your anger that becomes the lease on a pickup truck that has a 20% APR of not knowing what it's doing anymore, that rents out itself to branded entities, that knows where to find the best fog on sale, the best deal on fog, the best eyeless fury, the best endless grass, the most infinitesimal irritant ever unleashed by a stamen this side of the Atlantic. And if you pick up the fog, consider you can read the maker's mark. You can feel the same sting across the globe, the same displacement and dispersal. The fog bosses the market like a fist and retreats and begs for kindness. The lookbook for us propels grit into the nose at 20 miles per hour, sends dead branches scurrying, forcibly waters everything in its path. The lookbook saturates ground cover. These whores can't keep it together. Put a womb couch from the Playboy Mansion in front of them and they lose it. Their neckties curl and their ears, auga! And at the end of the day, all you can do is rest up and say, wow. Take this time to go inward and say to yourself, wow. Do a large wow every day in some small or large way. Wow, wow out loud. If you need to, wow out of town. The you of it all, the simply cha of seeing you, the gratitude, the wow. Our lookbook is Shark Week, starting now. Thank you so much, Andy. Thank you guys. Andy coming up? Guys, don't freak out, Andy's coming back.
You're fine.
Okay. Yeah, I'm so glad to be here with all of these amazing people who have read things that I really enjoyed. Wow. Wow. Yeah. And I want to thank Megan McShay for sharing with me a notable astronomical text, Instructions for Watching the Sky. And what follows, in what follows, I will transmit to you some key elements of these instructions. Keeping time. To devise accurate calendars, the watching over many generations of a single point, a rug salesman, a housewife, any interested person can look. What happens to the sun, which governs our day? The star time chips away at its minutes. Tools and methods. Refractors, reflectors, lenses, mirrors, light gathering, double stars, occult constellations. The eye sees only the present instant, except when burned. Spinoza, a lens grinder, lungs filled with glass. Saturn, its national organizations, a mirror for its objective. Famished objects touring the sky, arms tired and unsteady, again betrayed, the false deceiving comet. The light is gathered by a lens, comfort in its connection to power, to make and be made comfortable. There is no limit to its negative magnitude. The watcher is servant to the map, The clearest night is not always the best for our poor seeing. We see best with averted gaze, sharpest in the multitude. The clock drives in two directions at once. The average of circular motion is none at all. Ballad of a metal tube sweeping the horizon, weeping, it is cold and dead in the universe, animated only by tricks of light. Getting self-sorry, these morbid instruments, and we who make them. Some evenings are split just as sure as going away. They are coming again, and we will be here in our places. Close double star caster joined to dead brother Pollux. Our skill in using our eyes so underdeveloped, we expect what exists to present itself dumbly, to see what murmurs from the past. Night watch. The dull wash of city lights guards what is precious from view, like the watchman slouched by the loading dock. Night passes so splendidly, thrillingly, and nobody knows it. Accountants assess the mileage of midnight luxury. The wheel and the hours increase, the so-called stars in the so-called sky. A tired clerk reckons continuously, worn sleeve dragging along the meridian. Lunar disk, solar disk, turn the wheel, advance the film, swallow and reappear on the other side of the day. Finding an object is possible, though not recommended. To find an object, turn the telescope to face the sky. That airless round. Does the new moon remember its previous fullness? Once in a while we feel full, gorged on billboard haze. Then we are empty and go out again in the eclipse dark night, the coppery disk rewound. There are gigantic tongues that govern the greatest and least of us, that pivot wildly across the heaven of our laws. Are those who worship the sun invariably cruel? Or is that another antiquarian fever dream? Are those who worship invariably cruel? Do they vanish and reappear again on the opposite side, untouched by the flames, envious of the dark, occluded world where hunger winds and unwinds its automatons? In the morning, the atmosphere is steady. At noon, frenetic. At night, drunk and heedless, though never violent. Wan and mottled faces peer through ancient superstitions, worrying behind enlightened eyes. Observe the effects of darkness on birds. Plan this long in advance. Walk out alone before sunrise as the smoke, dust, and other particles congeal in great, hopeful pillars like searchlight beams. Look for it at midnight. Look twice at any fog or counter fog, for the wind-blown transparency crowning the zenith. Minor planets. The inferior planets are shining again with steady light. They know not their place. They crave large, special, and expensive equipment. Posing as morning star, I go among them recording. They can only be seen from the corner of the eye, elongated like dawn, a blackness on the face of the sun. Transit of horseshoe, transit of spoiled milk, transit of proton pump, transit of abundance no one alive has seen. My Martian year, grayish-green summer, manufactured controversy made of war, elite consensus made of dust, aspirations to higher life forms, to shed the skin of history. I breathed through the maps of dry rivers. I learned to breathe through the eyes, the fingertips, turn over evidence at drive-through testing sites. Benevolent authorities obscured by dust storm, my glimpse of a higher power, squinting at the breakfast menu of a franchise diner. Most of them are very small and faint. Tricks the eye. A new orrery set in motion the small panes of the body that flit along electric tracks, the most conspicuous, brightest, discovered by Galileo under the bed of a fingernail. Still unexplained, it vies with the scarred retina for beauty and interest. Indifferent apparatus in its cabinet, eye in its velvet shroud, searching out the details of what hurts it, the grain of sand scratching a new orbit. Undetectable. I took the darker one on purpose so you could have the other, which is easier. This planet presents nothing of interest to the sky observer. Its presence only a prediction. These elusive objects, they tend to be unreliable. Each day, a different exit is closed, trapping the tired traveler worker, steep ramp through the void of underground parking structure, dim contradictory arrows, needles of light across the sky. Those with a radio can listen, a weak distance station, hunch forward over the dashboard, wrappers crinkling, hear the atmosphere burn. Parting. In 1956, a comet appeared which exhibited a tail both before and behind. From the midline of this nomadic object blew two terrible winds, so powerfully repelled, like the sea parting, but parting forever. Space has no common repository like the tides. The Dime Museum. If a sound could be melted and fused to another sound of iron, cobalt, and nickel, displayed in sanitariums and museums, who's to say this was not done and simply unremembered? Our journey into swarms is in this pitch. In the windows of fiberboard hotels, people listen, a plastic cup on the table by the bed, named after the constellation from which it seems to radiate. Try to find the shortest path to morning in newspaper reports, shower pipes rhymed with green scales. Try to find persons who saw it from their own windows, in their cups, and won't deny what they heard. In the travel plaza, a crosshatch of trails, millions of amateur detectives interview fragile bodies, gas, and dust. A cup full of this substance shines by its own remnant light. Ancient times recur, the old names weigh down the earth. We find our way with arbitrary rules, legends, an index of myriad suns. Worth finding, found wanting. At what point does a number become unbelievable? Small, zero, too many, fathomless need, the one trick, lottery ticket, the ideal social unit in the lower reaches of the brain. I have never believed a number. They appear and vanish, and I think there are more of us than of them. In the telescope, we double, quadruple, we overrun them. Obscure stars. Do not attract attention to them in public. Learn to make the most of a quick glance. Split and split again the crowd, the haze and spray, Coney Island, irregular days, common center where a dream contracts and expands with the temperature. They rise swiftly from obscurity, then slowly sink beneath the eye's capacity. Don't be cramped. Let beauty take care of itself, however fleeting. Thank you.
So, yeah, that leaves some kind of mystery, so I'll start by saying that, like all that he's been through. But my mom died 2 weeks ago tonight, and I go tomorrow to fly down to North Carolina and give a eulogy at a mega church, of all things, if you can believe it, on Monday. And on Tuesday, the paperback of my book, Inheritance, comes out, which... Thank you. Which my dad died while I was writing it, and it's much about my relation with my family and the things that they forgot. So it's a good and how whiteness itself is a forgetting, and so and my mom also was struggling with dementia when she died, and so forgetting is something that's heavy on the mind. But I want to talk for a second first. The Baltimore Beat, which is in the back, bi-weekly, fortnightly, that is, black alternative weekly paper in the city. If you don't know it, support it. This week I happen to have written the cover story, which is about Donnell Rochester. And for Pride today, he was a black, queer, 18-year-old kid that the police shot in Northeast Baltimore in February of 2022, and I almost was going to read this tonight, because what I tried to do was make sure that we didn't forget that he had a life before that day. There's going to be a second part of the story that follows what the police did and what led up to it and on that day, but this is just his life without that. And so, it was going to press last week, 2 weeks ago at this time, when at the moment that my mom was dying, and it's very much about his relation with his mother and the grief that they still feel, and the story is written sort of like a celebrity profile of someone who didn't get to do the things that he wanted to do, and he was an amazing person. So there's a ton of them back there in the back. There's too many quotes and stuff from people whose voice isn't my voice, and I don't want to read and for them, but please take a look at Donnell's story. I started when I was going to write this book, Inheritance. I was thinking about whiteness as a kind of forgetting. And I was working for The Guardian back in 2016, and there was this story about Robert Smalls, who was an amazing hero in the Reconstruction period, was enslaved on a Confederate warship, and he stole it, drove it across the Union lines, in danger of being shot by the Union because they think it's Confederates, pilots it for the Union the whole war. It's getting repaired briefly in Philadelphia in like 1863, and while it's being repaired, he's kicked off the trolley, and he ends up desegregating public transportation in Philadelphia, and then in San Francisco there were protests and desegregated transportation in San Francisco. But he bought the house that he was enslaved in, and the wife of the woman who his family thinks was his father, but of their enslaver, came back with dementia, and he allowed her to live there. And every day she forgot the reality of the situation, the reality that it wasn't her house and that he wasn't her property. And that seemed like the myth of the 150 years after Reconstruction. And in researching that, I discovered that my great-grandfather had assassinated a black county commissioner named Peter Lemon, whose name had been lost almost and so have been working for a long time with people in Clarendon County now to have Peter Lemon be memorialized, while my ancestor who has a plaque and stuff to him while those things are removed. And so as I started to uncover that, though, I thought about how it's the daily forgetting that we all do. You know, here in Baltimore, white people here who, you know, occasionally reminded, like with Freddie Gray or Donnell Rochester, the way that policing functions different. The way that it doesn't just function different, but it happens as it does in West Baltimore because of what people do in Roland Park or Mount Vernon or Federal Hill or Canton. And it's in the stories that we're told by our parents. It's in the things that we get before we're old enough to even rationally sort through things. And so that was all of the stuff with memory and historical forgetting that I tried to deal with in this, and how the cover-up and the hiding of the crime of the assassination of Peter Lemon then came back to inform what my life is, and just as one little small example of the cost of our forgetting and of others remembering, is that after assassinating Peter Lemon, my great-grandfather ended up being involved in storming of the South Carolina State Capitol. After the 1876 election in 1877, the Klan had been broken up, so they were all these small little militias and rifle clubs with ironic sort of hipster names like "This is not a rifle club." And they were, you know, Proud Boy and stuff type groups that united as red shirts under the candidate Wade Hampton. They falsified the election results. They stormed the Capitol, but in all wearing red shirts, calling themselves red shirts. And instead of occupying it for a couple hours, they occupied it for 3 months until ultimately the federal government took away their martial support of the Reconstruction regime. And that was essentially the end of Reconstruction and the beginning of Jim Crow in America. And there are people who are doing that and who remember that, and we need to remember that, and we need to be ready to counter that sort of stuff. And so this is towards the end of the book, and it's dealing with my parents. And so I'm partly doing this. One of the joys of live performances, you see if somebody fails or not. And I don't know that I'm going to be able to do this thing on Monday, and so I'm trying to do this with y'all, see if I can. So I'm so grateful to be here. I love all the writers. I love all the people here. Thank you. I woke up early. I put on a pot of coffee in my mom's suburban South Carolina kitchen. Dad was still asleep. Since he'd been diagnosed with ALS, the devastating and invariably fatal neurodegenerative disease, a few months earlier, he'd been sleeping much later. Getting up and going to bed were both so difficult now. He put them off as long as possible. Mom was sitting in her little sunroom built off the back of the house, drinking decaf and studying her Bible as birds bounced around the various feeders she had placed outside her window. She refused to recognize the reality of the disease and the death that would ineluctably follow in its wake, praying every day for a miracle. Because she would not listen to the doctors when they talked about the grim progression of ALS. She didn't know how much worse this ordeal would get. This historian, Tony Judd, who died of ALS in 2010, described it as being in a prison cell that gets steadily smaller. You don't know when it's going to get so small it's going to crush you to death, but you know it's going to happen. The only question is when. But Mom would not hear this. This was only my second time seeing my parents in over a year, and Dad's decline seemed catastrophic. During the quarantine, he'd had 2 spinal surgeries before they realized it was ALS, rendering his legs increasingly useless, and none of us knew yet how to address the certain calamity. I'd arrived the night before in a rental car and helped Dad into the bed, going through his elaborate ritual required to help him get up from his chair, lifting his legs enough to change into pajamas and get into the bed. This morning I was going to return to his hometown of Manning in a small and tentative first step towards addressing at least one of the horrors I'd found in our family's history with some kind of concrete, collaborative action. Sorry, let me get a sip of water here, y'all. Can't believe I'm the only one to wear reading glasses yet. Y'all are getting there. Of all the countless atrocities committed by our white family, I devoted the most attention to the murder Dad had told me about 25 years earlier. The murder that had forced his grandfather, Dr. Irvin McSwain Woods, to flee from South Carolina. I thought that somehow this crime might hold the key to help me understand my own whiteness, to help me to comprehend what it was that inspired Dylan Roof to murder, the Nazis to rally, and the rest of us to refuse to see reality. Somehow all of those questions around the role of whiteness in the world and in my life funneled into the figure of I.M. Woods. Though I could not find definite proof, which is the purpose of a cover-up, I'd come to believe that my great-grandfather was involved in the assassination of a black county commissioner named Peter J. Lemon in April 1871, exactly 150 years before. "What time will you be back?" Mom asked. "I'm not sure. It takes 2.5 hours to drive to Manning," I said. "I'm meeting the guy at 11, but he has a funeral to go to later." Mom and I walked to the door of Dad's room to look in on him before I left. The light streaming in through his bedroom window made everything a golden color. Mom, impossibly thin now, squeezed my hand. Dad had told me he wouldn't be able to stay in the room much longer without some major renovation, because the doctor said soon he'd be entirely confined to a wheelchair. We'd need to use a lift to get him in and out of bed and into the chair and then back into bed, and the lift couldn't make it through the awkward angle of the two doors leading into what had been intended as a guest room. As it was now, he had a series of straps and cords and pulleys he'd set up on the bed to help him adjust his increasingly paralyzed body. Using the little strength left in his limbs, he could still control. But that would not last long. He could barely use his right hand at all now, and both of his legs refused to answer the call to muster. "I need to finish the interview by 2 so I can get to McCabe's and get barbecue for Dad," I said. "He wishes so much he could go," she said. "I know he does," I said. I did not want Dad to come with me this time. I'd been sharing my research with the Clarendon County Archives, where Dad and I had been the previous year, just before the pandemic broke out, and one day the archivist M.L. Witherspoon had written to tell me that a man named George Frierson wanted to talk with me. He had come into the archive asking about the assassination of Peter J. Lemon, and Witherspoon asked if I'd be willing to talk to him. When I Googled Frierson, I saw that he was known for helping posthumously overturn the conviction and death sentence of George Stinney, a 14-year-old black boy in White, South Carolina, sentenced to death after a 2-hour trial in 1947, making him the youngest person ever legally executed in the United States. Frierson, like Stinney, had grown up in Clarendon County, and he'd made it his mission to do whatever he could to rectify the horror of this history, which haunted his hometown like a ghost. I admired him for this, but it also made me think less of my own father. It should not have been necessary for Frierson to lead that fight, to point out the injustice perpetrated by the whites. The white people who had grown up under the Jim Crow regime that executed the young boy should have risen up in contrition, disgust, or anger. They should have pulled down the white supremacist monument in front of the courthouse and all the other white supremacist propaganda filling the town. Instead, so many Southern whites of my parents' generation, the last generation to grow up under the de jure segregation of the Jim Crow apartheid regime, just remained silent, as if they had simply moved beyond it all, forgotten. "We don't see color" became the most effective way for them to maintain the power open white supremacy had gained them. Because now, in order to recognize those advantages, one would have to invoke race. If you refuse to acknowledge race, then you don't have to acknowledge those advantages. Though Dad wouldn't talk about politics or race anymore, I tried to explain to Mom. It's like playing basketball where your team stole the other team's shoes and so they're having to play barefoot. When they say both sides should have shoes, the shod team says shoes aren't important. We don't even see shoes. She nodded, but she was too overwhelmed to worry about Dad to really listen. I believe Mom, like a lot of other white people, perhaps especially women, who have themselves been the victims of discrimination in the patriarchal South, had truly believed that raising her children to be colorblind was the best way to respond to the hate that had reared her. But in passing on an innocent and naive forgetfulness, her view of the world she grew up in, she helped transmit the miasma to me that had been passed on to her. Whiteness is the name we give this curse, the name of the forgetting.
This is so basic.
We haven't technically started yet.
Do you want me to introduce it?
Don't look, don't look.
We're not waiting.
Yeah. This is a small snippet from a play about a theater troupe who is asked to be fashion models, and they excel at it. And at this point in the play, they forget where they came from.
We would not like to forget to thank Andy and and everybody at the Current. So great to keep getting to perform all the time and see a lot of new performers.
Yeah. You know, fashion takes some time.
Oh, it's perfect. That's so good. Thank you, Isaac.
Did y'all see the shit that they're putting out in Europe this fall? Trash!
Disgusting.
It's literally off-the-shelf trash bags.
Oh my goodness. It should be illegal for anybody to wear anything that we didn't design.
Yeah.
And it should be illegal for anyone to design anything except for us.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Maybe not all of us. Well, maybe some of us shouldn't roll down the runway like I do and steal my moves. Yeah, my moves. Mine. Ownership, baby.
Well, maybe if someone didn't steal my organic and probiotic hair and skincare products, we'd all be a lot better off and we wouldn't be in this mess.
You know, that Snapple that I love to drink, it's pretty expensive. And I find half-drunk bottles like all over the place.
Oh my God! Lou, you know that my mouth gets very dry, but then I quickly become intolerant of whatever I'm drinking to alleviate that dryness. Die! I thought we had an understanding, but I realize now I was wrong.
Yeah, well, Jacob, you know, maybe somebody was walking down the runway and they tripped and they would have become a laughing stock if they didn't roll. And so maybe you're not the only roller, Jacob.
Well, everyone, let's just take a deep breath now.
No! Who keeps stealing my shoes?
You stole my brand.
You woke my father up from a coma so you could slap him?
I work so hard every day and then I come home and find that you've stolen my catchphrases. I used to work at the hot dog mobile, and now I work at the library mobile, and people still come up to me and ask for hot dogs, and so I have to take a hot dog and slam it between the pages of a book, and my sister is a librarian and is disgusted with me. Disgusted!
Well, every time I get home from the manicure, you look at my nails and you go, oh, poop colored, it's taupe!
It's poop!
butter on.
What do you think will happen when I tell everyone that you wear glasses with no lenses?
You know what? Hold my dress. Shut up and give me 20, you idiots, maggots. This is weird. Yeah, look at him. Oh, no. So upset. You know what? Damn it, now it's not connected anymore. Teresa. No. I thought we went camping together that one time. We didn't go camping?
No, we didn't.
Oh. Give me the scissors.
Take it.
Yes.
Francisco, we're sibling husbands.
Not anymore. We're getting a divorce emancipation. What they're putting out in Europe might not be shit at all. I admit it. I did steal your catchphrase. That's a pickle if I've ever seen one. I don't own rolling as a concept. You can have my Snapple.
It should not be illegal for people
wanna come up and introduce it?
Bye.